Hey there, it's Andela here with a festive season throwback just for you. Now we're digging into the vault today to revisit a gem of a conversation with two tech ecosystem heavyweights, namely Amadou Daffe and Adewale Yusuf. Now, 6 years ago, Amadou was building Gebeya as Ethiopia's answer to tech talent development, and Ade was turning Techpoint.ng into a media powerhouse. Now, lots changed since then for sure, because Amadou's transformed Gebeya into a hybrid organization revolutionizing how African tech talent connects with global opportunities. And Adewale, well, he's flipped the script completely, going from covering tech to actually building it. His latest moves with AltSchool Africa are wild. They're not just trading tech talent in Africa anymore. They're expanding into Europe, starting with Malta. Now, those news just dropped earlier this month. Now, this chat's especially cool because it touches on some nitty-gritty regarding developer community culture in Ethiopia versus Nigeria circa 6 years ago. Some might say these insights might be relevant today. I don't know. You let us know. Now, a quick shout out to Brooke Sunet in Addis, who hit us up asking for Amadou to be on the show. Now, Brooke, I imagine you didn't know he was on the show 6 years ago. But listen, everyone else, is there someone you'd like to hear from? Have right here on the pod? Let us know. Perhaps there's an old episode you think deserves another spin. We'd also like to know. So hit me up at andile@africantechroundup.com, or you can slide into my DMs on X at Masugu Andile, and we'll see what we can do. Otherwise, heads up, over the next handful of weeks, we'll be digging into our archives to dust off some of those classics to serve you over the holiday as we prepare for brand new shows in the new year. And then again, after you've listened to this episode, let us know if you think, as I do, that it might be cool to have these two back on the show to chat about what they're up to these days. Otherwise, without further ado, grab a warm or hot drink, depending where you are in the world, kick back, and let's get into it. Enjoy.
So, Amadou Daffe, I run a company called Gebeya out of Ethiopia.
Welcome to the African Tech Roundup, man.
Thank you very much, sir.
My name is Adewale Yusuf. I run the company called Techpoint.ng. We're a media platform. We are like most read in Sub-Saharan Africa when it comes to startup, entrepreneurship, and technology. Then we host tech events as well. At least this year we've had 2, and we have more than 10,000 people there. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Welcome to the African Tech Roundup, man.
Thank you for having us.
Amadou, I'll start with you. Arguably the most visible, perhaps most well PR'd startup founder in Ethiopia at the moment. Turns out you're not even Ethiopian. You're actually Senegalese. What the heck?
Hey, man. Okay. All right. So the story is very simple. If you can't go to Nigeria, you got to go to Ethiopia, right? So it's the second largest population. Most of my, 3/4 of my life I actually spent in the U.S. So that's probably how you're connected, yeah? And I've been traveling to Africa the past 6 years trying to rediscover the continent. Because you think you're in Nigeria, you think you know Africa.
And what did you do in the U.S.?
So, I went to school there. I'm a software engineer by trade. So I worked for a few companies and learned the trade, went to even enterprise architect. And then later I realized that everybody around me were always Indians, Pakistanis, or Filipinos in terms of the guys who actually did the work in American companies, right? So I was like, well, there's something missing here. We should have more Africans actually to do this stuff. So I went on and created an organization at the time called Coders for Africa. This is before Andela, before all of these guys. But I cheated. So I was in the U.S., comfort of my home, doing some outsourcing to Africa using this panel. We actually even had an office in Nigeria, a little bit of in Lagos, Kaduna states and stuff like that. And then I realized, okay, now we need to take it to the next level. I decide, okay, I need to move back to Africa. My connection to Senegal, although, being part from there, I couldn't resonate because I wasn't Francophone anymore, right? When you're in the U.S., you're not even Anglophone, you're American, right? The way you think, the way you act, everything has to move very fast. So they had 3 choices. Either go to Nigeria where I'll get destroyed because Andela was already there and stuff like that. And also Nigerians are very, territorial? Territorial, exactly. The second thing was Kenya, which was good, but it was complacent. Kenya is becoming complacent because of the M-Pesa thing. There was no new innovation happening. Nigeria is moving faster now than actually Kenya was, right? And then I happened to be working with developers in Ethiopia for the past 3-4 years. I noticed, these guys are good. Let me go to that country and see. When I saw the massive hunger for knowledge, for doing better, showing the world who they are, I'm like, this is where I want to be.
Yeah, apparently they've got like a busload of universities that offer computer science, and who knew?
Exactly, 43. And so I decided, that's what I'm going to do. So I packed my bags from New Jersey, just moved, never looked back, brought in some investment. A year and a half later, we have about 300 developers trained on, but we specifically train them on anything from blockchain, machine learning, anything from gaming, you saw that with Dawit, anything around fintech and power. So those are the sectors we wanted to train software engineer in rather than just teaching them coding.
And then you get them deployed in firms.
Yeah, because it's a marketplace. That's why we call it Gebeya, which means market in Amharic. And then we plug them into companies around the world or even in Africa. But my ultimate goal is different from the competitors, is to allow African tech to have tech talent. Okay, so right now, even in Nigeria, companies are complaining because Nigerian developers now are pricing themselves too high because of the Andela Effect. So how do you support this entire ecosystem in Nigeria of startups who can't afford $50,000, right? And you want to have 2 developers that will cost them that much. Can we bring the price lower to $10,000? So that's my battle, in a sense.
So Adewale is like, he went, when you talked about, off mic, of course, he went, when he said, the price of the cost of coding talent in Nigeria is like gone ridiculous since Andela did a thing. We had Andela on the show a while ago. We had the head of strategy, and she's like, well, you can't blame us for, paying people what they're worth, and maybe that says something about what the market was valuing, proper talent. Maybe there's just a correcting of what talent's actually worth. What's your take on it, Adewale?
So I think we live in a global village. As much as it's an opportunity, it's a blessing and a curse. A blessing in the way that a lot of people are getting into development, a lot of talents are growing, people are actually developing, and it's a curse because you can't actually employ them as a local entrepreneur. You can't really employ developers that way. And we did the research last year. We look at developers' salary. For the first time, we actually get the actual amount you pay salary developers. And we discovered that the people that had like $5,000, they don't work for companies in Nigeria. And they are working among us. They are like a ghost that lives among us. And they are big boys because in the US, it's if you run a company in the US, it will be of a good benefit to you to pay a developer in Nigeria to work with you remotely, because in the US you have to cater for their home, for a lot of stuff. You can't even keep them in the valley. So now they're actually employing them at home in Nigeria. So it's actually a lot of challenges. So developers are getting better to work for companies outside Nigeria. As much as I see what Andela is doing, which is very good, but I think sometimes too is a curse because we can actually afford them. No Nigeria, I can actually say literally no Nigerian company can actually employ this guy, can afford to employ them. And we're in a global village. The talent pool, a lot of people are coming for Nigerian talent, African developers. So what he's doing is really interesting to keep them inside, but it's another challenge. Let's think from a developer's perspective.
It's all gravy for them.
Exactly. Why should I stay with you when my mate I can actually earn more from outside? So that's actually a very big dilemma. But what we discover and what we are trying to do, because it's a ticking time bomb, what we are trying to do to help this is make sure we encourage more people to enter into development, so a lot of developers can be in the market once there is a pool, because it's a talent of the future, it's a skill of the future. The demand is growing every day, and it's going to get more because everybody is migrating online.
So Amadou, you're amening in this corner over there.
Yes, sir. Because so there's two ways of looking at it, right? There's a perspective where we can provide job for talent in Africa to do the outsourcing and thing. But then we all here gathered Afrobytes to talk about the African tech industry and stuff like that. Well, if you don't have local talent to support the tech industry, then we're going to run into the same problem of brain drain. It's still brain drain. As a developer, if you're working for a company outside, you're still, doing that. The good news is there are other African countries. Maybe in Nigeria, the cost of a developer is expensive, but there's other African countries who will take a cut. Remember, that's why I say there's no competition on Andela. The market is enough. A developer in Ethiopia that makes $1,000 is like they made $5,000 in Nigeria. Do you get me? They even make more than doctors. Some doctors over here make $1,000 in Ethiopia, right? So by this thing, even Paul Kagame is talking about the intertrade within Africa. Well, we could do it with skills. If Nigerian companies can hire Ethiopian developers because they're hiring Indian developers because of the cost, why not hire Ethiopian developers? There's a company in Nigeria called Paga. Yeah. Did you know Paga? Almost the entire platform was built by Ethiopian developers.
I had no idea. Did you know this?
No, I don't.
One of the Nigerian guys who met the Ethiopian, they has an Ethiopian founder, I think initially, they decided to do it in Ethiopia. Right? The guy's company is called Opposite. All they did was payment platform, and they built Paga. So you see what I'm saying? So it's already happening. I just have to do my job at Gebeya to make sure we have enough developers who can work with the Nigerian economy. You know what I mean? So that's really what and other economy, even do it for Morocco, because Moroccan developers cost because Egypt and Tunisia and so on and so forth. And then later, you can do Ethiopia and Kenya as well, right? So that's the idea.
Using that as a springboard to discuss the sort of temperament that's required of a coder who wants to make a career servicing the Nigerian market. Give me a sense of what that profile might look like. I mean, given your exposure to the tech and innovation scene there.
When I look at the landscape of the developers, one thing I know is energy and focus and dedication. I know people that learn every day, people that go for training and even sleep on that bridge just because of that training, because they don't have any place to stay. And I know some guys, some years ago, when all these were starting in Nigeria at the emerging stage, we had a company like Nokia. Nokia started training. They do QT with C++. I was part of this training there. I know students that came from Ife that were actually OAU. There's a school called OAU. It's one of the best schools in Nigeria. And these students came. And even when they don't have places to stay, they were hanging around. They make sure they did that training. And guess where those guys are now? They are top developers in Germany, in US, in Netherlands, in Switzerland. And they're doing deep learning, doing robotics, doing a lot of AI. So, Nigerian developers, energy, focus, and dedication. You can't miss that.
So let's talk about the profile of the Ethiopian developer in the context of being a territory that didn't experience colonial oppression, certainly interference to some extent, but certainly a lot of interesting things that are woven into the fabric of Ethiopian socioeconomics, everyday life. What does that contribute to the type of coders coming out of that country?
Well, a lot. One of the things that you have to realize is Ethiopia, because of the language barrier, speaking Amharic, but at the same time having the opportunity of learning English very well, because they go to school, they learn English too. It gives them in a position where when you meet a first Ethiopian developer, the guys that come to get trained with us, the first thing is the humility. So one of the things you'll notice in Ethiopians is humility. They're very proud of themselves, but they won't show it to you. There's a way of communicating with where different from a Nigerian developer who's a lot of energy, will tell you what he does, right? So then once the Ethiopian learn what they need to know, or they get the visibility, you'll see it cocoon up, right? You see, like Dawit, for example, when he built this game.
All right, tell us about Dawit, because you've referenced him twice, but he's exactly who I was thinking about when you started this description. So tell the people who Dawit is.
Okay, so Dawit Abraham is the gentleman that actually founded Kukulu, the mobile game app that people are talking about. He's the example of Gebeya. That's what Gebeya produced. He came to Gebeya very humble, with a very beat-up game, and say, hey, Amadou, I want to learn your mobile engineering track. I said, all right, great. During the interview process, we tell him, what have you done? Oh, I built this game. I went boom in my head. I'm like, okay, this is even a market parallel penetration for us if we say that we've done some in gaming. So we sat down with them, okay, but you got to go through the training. It's a mindset. Our training is a mindset. So we went through it. When he was done, he landed a couple of jobs on the platform, but he really wanted his product to grow. So we incubated him. Gebeya actually invested money on him, giving the mentorship from me and my co-founder, and turned him on what it is today. So when Dawit was first came to Gebeya, and the Dawit now is totally different. You get me? So, but he's humble.
Meeting some of the other Ethiopian delegates here at Afrobytes this year, running into people who helped program the Sophia robot in Saudi Arabia. Apparently up to 50% of that code was done in Ethiopia. But you talk to them in the corridors, see them on a panel, you're like, I'm not dealing with, if an American had done it, they'd be like headlining the whole place, and it'd be, and so what is that, how is that good for business in Gebeya terms?
So it's quiet confidence. So they're very quiet in confidence. But what it does to me is an Ethiopian developer is not driven by money right away. They want to prove something. Whereby a Kenyan developer, Nigerian, and it's totally normal, can be driven by money. I know this thing, I'm going to make a lot of money, which gives me time to ramp up the capacity. My model actually works that way, where I don't need to be aggressively going and trying to find money for them. Let's build the country together into having more of Dawit, more of things, and eventually it'll transpire. So that's really what's happening. The type of profile that Dawit is my perfect, because again, it's not like you have a Nigerian developer is different than a Ethiopian developer. So a developer is a developer.
In talent terms, they equally gifted, but this nuance you're talking about like its contribution to the fabric of the company you're building.
It's like the ecosystem, right? Because a developer is a developer. They're beings who create things out of nothing. It's very abstract. It's like musicians. Musician create something, but they're very resilient. They'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, code. They sit on a bridge in Nigeria, like you said, and code. They'll be outside and code. That's the mindset that they have. So they're all the same. It just depends. Are they business-like people, or are they humble enough to learn more and then become business? So that's the difference when I say it.
So let's talk about Nigeria, but first let's talk about how a Niger-born boy ends up operating the journalistic capacity. Techpoint, Nigeria, of course, at this point, well entrenched within tech and innovation circles as a resource, as a reference point for our ecosystem. Talk us through that journey, because I think we have in common, Nigeria and Zimbabwe, the fact that media as a proposition, as a professional proposition, not high up on the list of most Nigerian parents and uncles and aunties. Yeah, so talk us through how you've navigated your decision to build a media platform and commercialize it.
So it's about the story. We follow the story. For example, I've been in this space for like 7-8 years. I started as a developer. I discovered it wasn't my forte. I couldn't do much. I work with a development team, but one day I saw someone that offered, why can't you write for this platform? I was there for a while until the person dropped it. So I went into photography, and I came one day. I discovered nobody was telling the story of the guys doing something. No matter how small it was, there's some things going on. We had Iroko, we have Konga, and narrative is important, because if you don't tell your story, someone else will come and tell the story. Another big firm, whenever they enter the market, they're just coming to talk about the big company that actually raised funding. And we talk about the small guys, because those small guys are the ones that contribute to the growth of everyone. So we started, and it's been really challenging, and it's been really fun. You understand? We grew from just only me to like a team of 16, and we now build a trust, we build a community. Every day people go to the platform. Every time we champion conversation. So we started that, and beyond that we say, okay, let's gather people offline. Our first event was last year, and we had more than 1,000 people. I said, okay, let's do another one for startup, and this year we are close to 5,000 people. January, then okay, let's do for tech. In May, that's within 5 months, we had more than 5,000 people for the other one. So we're just creating that market. We're creating the opportunity, because it was like the way music market developed in Nigeria. So because anywhere you go now in Africa, people jam Nigerian music. Yeah.
Everywhere.
In Ethiopia as well?
That's all they listen. If you don't play Nigerian music, you don't rock.
You see, these guys, they fought for it, and that's what we're trying to do now, to make it a movement so everyone can be part of it, because we don't have a choice for what is coming. The fourth industrial revolution that we are in, we're the age of robotics, because people, you can't go, it's so sad that we have 23 commercial banks in Nigeria. And in schools, universities, you still have banking and finance as a course. As a course that people still do. You graduate how many thousands for 23 commercial banks, and they are actually sacking them every time because a lot of things have been automated. So that's why we are trying to create awareness. And the last event, I saw a 6-year-old guy that came that his father brought, and the guy was saying, I want to learn how to code. I was really excited because the moment we can actually get them into this, and so that's our story. And then we are doing the same thing in other African market. We're going to Kenya this year. We'll use it to power East Africa, and I'm really interested in Ethiopia, in what they are doing. I will be there in July or maybe August just to learn. Definitely Daffe is going to invite me.
Check it out. No pressure, Daffe. Listen, I want to pick up on something Adewale said about narrative. And you and I spoke off mic a little earlier about like the role of narrative in either, well, I suppose, not making or breaking, but actually contributing to the ongoing success of Gebeya. It seems some startups on the continent have an easier time at grabbing those headlines, making those TechCrunch fast company listings and that kind of thing. And there seems to be, by and large, a single story told about what's hot and what's not in the developed world. And the same names keep coming up. In your case, what's obviously relevant to your context is Andela. And I've even found myself sort of referring to Gebeya even on our show as, the sort of, Andela... the Andela in Ethiopia, not the second best. So give me a sense of your perception of how narrative and how narrative is contributing to, or maybe scuppering, the progress you'd like to see Gebeya make.
All right, so there's two things. There's three things. First of all is what you call direct information and information. Direct information is what I'm getting from a South African living in an Ethiopian. So the direct information that we have versus indirect information where CNN is telling me what you're doing in South Africa, which is how Africans have always operated. We always gotten information from other African countries based on what you see in CNN. Okay? I'm looking forward for Techpoint to come to Ethiopia, and we'll tell them from our perspective what Ethiopians are doing. So now if you look at it from Andela, that's what they're doing. So their interest at heart, from a moral interest, is not Africa, right? Because it's clear to their model. We can't blame them for it. They're trying to have brains that they can ship to the U.S. or, make them work, and benefit from it. It's a business decision. My moral interest is allowing the African tech industry to blossom, because if you don't do that, no matter how much money you make, right, from foreign companies, eventually it won't benefit the thing. So what I want to do, my focus is Africa. I rather Techpoint actually write an article about us and tell us how we are helping the startup ecosystem find affordable and quality developer than being on CNN. That's why I never wanted to be on CNN right away. At the end of the day, if you need a developer, you need a good developer. Whether Zuckerberg funded the organization that you run, or I personally and my co-founder funded our organization, let's put him toe to toe. We can only beat each other in terms of pricing and in terms of capacity. In 1 year, in a year and a half, we have 260 developers. When Andela started, people don't even go back and see how Andela started. When they started in Nigeria, they were struggling. Okay, so they had, I think, over 2 years, maybe 100. Now they have about maybe between 300 and 600. But it's also debatable how many of them are actually productive, how many actually would generate revenue. My goal in the next 5 years is to have 5,000 engineers that can be spawned across Africa and create a $100 million marketplace. That is it, right? So I am focused in that narrative. I am going to these African countries, talking to these African people and saying, don't hire people from overseas anymore, hire African developers. Whereby Andela's message may be different, but at least it validates what I'm doing. Because when CNN talks about African developers, okay, I can benefit from it. But for me, it's a long term rather than just the perception of indirect information. Do you get me? So that's all.
So I'm going to close this interview by asking you guys to do something that has been encouraged here at Afrobytes, and there's been a healthy sense of competition between Team Nigeria, Team Ethiopia, even though in this particular case we don't actually have an Ethiopian on the mic. So here's the deal. Afrobytes saw quite a massive Ethiopian contingent. rolling heavy on some, we're doing the business. We've been in stealth mode for a really long time. We've been subject to a fairly poorly publicized narrative. Nigeria's never had a problem telling us what's going on over there. But yeah, you guys have always been in the mix. Africa's biggest economy. You see, I'm already getting you started. Well, hang on.
We have the number.
All right, so that's just to get you all started. So I'm going to give you guys each 30 seconds to make your case for why your various markets are the business. Speak to founders who are looking at those markets and saying, maybe I can start over there. Let's speak to potential repats who are going, shall I leave New Jersey? Shall I not? Speak to, you're laughing. Speak to your people, Daffe. Speak to investors who are currently kind of, looking around going, which market shall I bet on, And who wants to go first? The Nigerian says he wants to go first. Surprise, surprise.
Nigerian.
You are first in many ways already.
Nigerians. So one thing I mean, for the first time, this place actually opened my mind. And I've been telling people, like, China is the market of today. Africa is the market of tomorrow. So it's not about competition at all. But if you want to come, there are a lot of challenges. But trust me, there are a lot of opportunities and money that are coming in. I mean, this year alone, the money that have been injected into Nigeria is like $50 million that have gone into startups. We do reports on that as well. So it's a place to be, but you need to convince yourself, are you ready for it? Trust me.
Come with your loins girded.
Don't miss it, but are you ready for it?
All right, there we go. That was 30 seconds. Daffe, you're up, sir.
Right. So Ethiopia is always a special case in Africa, but it has a couple of advantages. First one is that the African Union headquarters is in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa. The numbers don't lie. They're growing. Last year they grew 7.8% in terms of economy. They even beat China. There's a lot of investment coming in from the Chinese government and businessmen that actually kind of prove that Ethiopia would be the next manufacturing hub. Okay, so that is already locked in. The thing is, how do we position Ethiopia to be the next tech hub? I think that between us building the capacity of talent and companies looking at it, right, tech companies to say, you know what, let me go set up shop in Ethiopia, I think that's the opportunity. So from the tech side, it's lagging behind because there's a few things that needs to happen. But for anything else, anything from manufacturing and some of these things that is more require
mainstream.
Yeah, and mainstream require more capital. There's plenty of opportunity to go forward. So.
All right, man. Amadou Daffe of Gebeya and, of course, Adewale Yusuf of Techpoint Nigeria. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having us.
It was great, man.